I'll never forget the sting of that night. At my own sister's engagement party, surrounded by relatives and so-called friends, I overheard my mother's voice cut through the laughter. "Hannah is just so dumb." The room erupted. Glasses clinked, champagne spilled over smiles, and someone cheered, "Here's to stupid relatives with money." I stood frozen, my heart pounding, watching the people I had loved and supported turn me into a joke. To them, I wasn't family, I was a walking wallet, a gullible puppet who always said yes. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. Instead, I smiled through clenched teeth and slipped out quietly, carrying their laughter with me like a knife in my back. They thought they had me figured out, that I'd keep paying, keep nodding, keep being their fool. But a month later, when they planned another celebration at my country house, I was ready. My name is Hannah, I'm 34, and if you looked at my life on paper, you'd probably think it was perfectly ordinary. I live in a modest apartment in the city, work as a senior account manager for a trading firm, and try to keep myself busy enough not to dwell too much on the messy parts of my past. 3 years ago, I divorced my husband, Daniel. It wasn't explosive, no screaming fights or courtroom dramas, just two people who grew apart until there was nothing left to fight for. Thankfully, we had no children. The only thing we had to split was the country house. That house. At first, I wanted nothing to do with it. 3 bedrooms, a big patch of land, and far too many memories of weekends I'd rather forget. My plan was simple: sell it fast, pocket the money, and finally buy a modern apartment closer to work. To me, it was just an asset, nothing sentimental. But when I brought it up at Sunday dinner, my family reacted as if I had suggested burning down a church. My mother's fork clattered against her plate. My father frowned like I had betrayed some sacred tradition, and my younger sister, Lily, immediately jumped in with her wide-eyed theatrics. "Hannah, you can't sell that beautiful house. Think of the family holidays we could have there," my mom pleaded. "Yeah, hon," Lily added, reaching for my hand across the table. "Imagine barbecues, birthdays, summer nights by the fire pit. It could be like our family retreat." I wanted to laugh. For years, no one had cared about that house. Suddenly, it was a family treasure. Still, the way my mom looked at me with those practiced puppy dog eyes made it almost impossible to say no. She'd used that look on me since I was a child, and even now, as a grown woman with a demanding job, it still worked. So I agreed. I told them I'd keep the house. I signed a mortgage for my city apartment instead of paying outright, and I handed over a spare set of keys to my mother. She smiled as if I'd just given her a crown jewel. Over the next few years, that house became less of a family retreat and more of a revolving door for everyone except me. My parents went out there for weekend getaways. Lily and Jason used it for romantic escapes. My aunts and uncles treated it like a free vacation rental. During the holidays, I cooked and cleaned while they sprawled across the couches, sipping wine like they owned the place. And the truth? At the time, I didn't mind. I told myself it was worth it to see them happy. I thought maybe this was what family was all about: sacrifice, compromise, giving more than you got. I had no idea then how wrong I was. The country house quickly transformed into what everyone proudly called our gathering spot. It sounded sweet, on the surface, family together, memories made, but in reality, I watched as the lines blurred between what was mine and what everyone else claimed as theirs. On Friday nights, I'd get texts from my mom like, "Your dad and I are heading to the house for the weekend, don't worry. We'll leave it just as we found it." Of course, that meant half-empty wine bottles in the fridge, muddy footprints on the back porch, and a pile of laundry no one bothered to do. Lily loved the house most of all. My younger sister had always been the social butterfly, the girl who wanted her life to look picture-perfect on Instagram. She and her boyfriend, Jason, started driving out there almost every other weekend. Sometimes I'd find flower petals on the deck, champagne corks in the yard, or forgotten clothing tucked into drawers. It was like watching my house slowly become the backdrop for their love story, not mine. Holidays were the worst. Thanksgiving, Christmas, 4th of July, you name it, the house became swarmed. My aunts Nancy and Susan would take over the kitchen, barking orders at me as if I were the help. My uncles Paul and Greg would park themselves in front of the TV, shouting at the game while leaving greasy fingerprints on the furniture. My parents, meanwhile, strutted around like proud hosts, as though the deed had their names on it, not mine. Jason's parents even started showing up. Linda and George were polite enough, but I couldn't shake the sting that I was footing the bill. Utilities, maintenance, cleaning, while strangers enjoyed the perks. They treated me warmly, of course, but it always felt like pity, like I was that nice sister who worked hard but never quite measured up. And through it all, I convinced myself it was fine. I told myself, Hannah, you're building goodwill. They'll remember this. They'll appreciate you for keeping the family together. I clung to that narrative because the alternative that they were simply using me was too painful to admit. I worked long hours in the city, paying off my mortgage, handling the endless bills. Every month, my paycheck disappeared into two places, my apartment and that house. I rarely used it myself. Most weekends, I was too exhausted from work to even drive out. Yet whenever my family gathered there, I felt a flicker of pride. At least they were happy, right? But deep down, there was a gnawing emptiness. I'd walk into my quiet apartment on a Sunday night after they had spent the whole weekend laughing at my house, and I'd wonder, if I didn't provide, if I didn't give, would they even invite me? Would they still care if the house wasn't mine? That question would haunt me until the night I overheard the truth. It happened on a Friday night I'll never forget. Work had been brutal all week, but just as I was about to head into a late management meeting, my boss called to cancel. Half the leadership team was out sick. For once, I had a free evening. I thought, why not surprise them? My mom had mentioned everyone was gathering at the country house that night. My parents, Lily and Jason, Aunt Nancy, Uncle Paul, even Jason's parents. I could practically see them laughing around the fire pit, and I pictured myself walking in with pastries from my favorite bakery downtown. A sweet surprise, right? So I did it. I picked up boxes of chocolate croissants, fruit tarts, and lemon bars, then drove the hour out of the city, smiling to myself the whole way. I imagined the looks on their faces, the hugs, the Hannah, you shouldn't have. Maybe, I thought, this would be the night I finally felt like part of the group, not just the one footing the bills. When I pulled up, the driveway was full of cars: Mom's SUV, Dad's truck, Lily's little red sedan, Jason's black Jeep. Lights spilled from every window. The place looked alive. My heart actually fluttered with anticipation as I slipped my key into the lock and eased the front door open. I heard laughter before I even stepped inside. Loud, easy, unrestrained laughter. It warmed me until I caught my mother's voice, sharp and cruel beneath it. I'm telling you, Hannah is just so incredibly dumb. The laughter swelled. My blood turned to ice. I froze in the entryway, the pastry boxes trembling in my hands. She does whatever we tell her, Mom continued, her tone smug. Like a little puppet. It's almost too easy. Remember when we convinced her not to sell this house? My father chimed in. She was ready to buy herself a new apartment outright, but we spun some story about family memories. Boom. She keeps the house, takes out a mortgage instead, and now we get to use this place whenever we want. More laughter, glasses clinked. My stomach twisted. Lily's voice cut through next, bright and casual, like she was bragging. Oh, and you guys should hear this. I ask Hannah for rent money all the time. Just call her up crying about how tight things are, and she always wires me $800, sometimes more if I lay it on thick. She never even hesitates. My hands shook so badly I thought I'd drop the pastries. That's nothing, Aunt Nancy piped up. 6 months ago I told her I needed emergency dental work, $2,000. She wired it without asking a single question. I bought myself a new sofa set. Gorgeous sectional, coffee table. Hannah basically redecorated my living room for me. They roared with laughter again, the kind that stabs at your ears. Then Uncle Paul added, I told her I had car trouble last year. She gave me $1,500. Spent it on a fishing boat. Easy money. I pressed against the wall, my breath shallow. Each word cut deeper, each laugh another knife in my chest. And then Jason's father, George, joined in. Honestly, it's like having a personal bank in the family. A bank that never asks for proof, never wants the money back. My mom raised her glass, her voice clear and triumphant. Exactly. Hannah's just a walking ATM. The best part? She doesn't even realize it. Here's to stupid relatives with money, someone shouted, and they all clinked glasses. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. Everything I'd done, the sacrifices, the bills, the endless yeses, reduced to a cruel punchline. Quietly, I backed out of the house, pastries still clutched in my arms. I made it to my car without a sound, started the engine, and drove away. Tears blurred the road as I whispered to myself, "They think I'm dumb. They think I'm their fool." That night I cried until my body ached, but by morning the grief had hardened into something else, something sharp. I wasn't dumb. I wasn't their puppet, and they were about to learn that. The weekend after I overheard everything was a blur of anger and disbelief. I barely left my apartment. The pastry boxes I'd bought sat untouched on the counter until the fruit tarts grew stale and the lemon bars dried out. Every time I looked at them, I felt the sting of humiliation all over again. I replayed their words in my head on a loop. Dumb, puppet, walking ATM, my own mother raising a toast. Here's to stupid relatives with money. That was me. That was what they really thought of me. I wanted to call them, to scream through the phone and demand answers. I drafted texts that ranged from furious to pleading, "How could you? Why would you say that about me? Is that really all I am to you?" But I deleted everyone. Confronting them in that moment would have given them the power again, and I was done handing over power. Instead, I made a decision. I would wait. I knew my family too well they couldn't go long without asking me for something. Money, favors, a house key, a car ride. It was only a matter of time before the next request came. And when it did, I wouldn't be caught off guard. I would be ready. During those days, I started writing everything down, every dollar I'd given Lily for rent, every time I'd wired money to Nancy, every time I'd fixed a bill my parents forgot to pay. I made a list so long it filled 3 notebook pages. Seeing it in ink, in black and white, made me sick. Tens of thousands of dollars over the years. My generosity hadn't been kindness, it had been exploitation. Still, I didn't tell a soul what I'd heard. When Mom called a few days later just to check in, her voice sugary and sweet, I forced myself to sound normal. I laughed when she told me about her book club. I asked about Dad's knee pain. I even congratulated Lily on hitting some sales goal at her boutique. Every word felt like poison in my mouth, but I stayed calm, polite, and predictable. Because the truth was, I wanted them to keep believing I was stupid. I wanted them to think I was still their puppet, still the gullible sister who always said yes. If they thought that, they'd let their guard down. And when they finally leaned on me for something big, something they thought they had in the bag, I would be there to pull the rug out from under them. It was a dangerous kind of patience, but it gave me focus. For the first time in years, I wasn't just drifting along, reacting to my family's needs. I had a plan. A quiet, deliberate plan. And sure enough, I didn't have to wait long. Just 2 weeks later, my phone rang, and my mother's voice was buzzing with excitement. Lily had gotten engaged, and, of course, they had the perfect idea for where to host the engagement party. My country house. When my mom told me Lily was engaged, her voice carried so much joy, I almost believed it was real. Almost. "Oh, Hannah, it was beautiful," she gushed. "Jason proposed last night with the most gorgeous ring. Lily is absolutely glowing. We just have to celebrate properly." I forced a smile into my voice. "That's wonderful, Mom. I'm happy for her." Good, she said quickly, as if brushing past my approval so she could get to the real point. "Now we've all been talking, and the perfect place for an engagement party is your country house. Everyone agrees it's the ideal setting." There it was. My chest tightened, but I made sure my tone stayed warm. "Of course, Mom. You know the house is always available for family." She paused, and I could almost hear her shifting into the next act. "Sweetheart, there's just one tiny little problem. We want this party to be really special for Lily and Jason, you know, with proper catering, flowers, lights, maybe even a live band. But," her voice softened to a practiced whimper, "we're a little short on funds right now." I clenched my teeth and kept my voice soft. "Oh no, that's too bad. We need about $5,000 to make it happen," she continued. I know it's a lot, but Lily only gets engaged once, and you're her only sister. This is the moment she'll remember for the rest of her life. 5,000. Exactly what they'd laughed about that night. I pictured them around my living room, glasses raised, planning to bleed me dry. I could feel my pulse hammering in my ears, but I didn't let even a flicker of anger show. Wow, I said slowly. 5,000 is, yeah, that's a big number. It is, Mom sighed, her tone dripping with false sadness. But you make good money, and Lily has always looked up to you. It would mean the world if you could make this happen. I let a beat of silence hang between us before I delivered my line. I wish I could help right now, but I just had some unexpected expenses. My emergency fund is tapped out. The disappointment in her silence was delicious. Then, right on cue, she offered the bait. Well, maybe. Maybe your dad and I, along with Lily and Jason, could pay for everything up front. Then, when you're able, you can just pay us back. There it was. The exact trap they thought they were setting for me. That sounds fair, I said smoothly. Go ahead and book whatever you need. I'll reimburse you later. She gasped with joy. Oh, Hannah, you're an angel. I'll call the caterer first thing tomorrow. When we hung up, I sat in silence, staring at my reflection in the darkened window. My face looked calm, but inside, the storm was raging. They thought they'd won again. They thought I was still the gullible fool with open pockets. But this time, the game was mine. The next day, I called a locksmith named Frank and scheduled him to meet me at the country house the night before the engagement party. I told him I wanted every single lock changed: front door, back door, even the sliding glass one by the patio. He didn't ask questions, just promised he'd be there with new hardware and keys. Friday evening, I drove out to the house. Sure enough, they'd already been there, decorating like it was some kind of fairy tale. White streamers fluttered across the porch, balloons bobbed in the breeze, and twinkling lights draped along the hedges. Inside, the dining room was transformed with linen-covered tables and crystal glasses. It was beautiful, perfect. Even, for a fleeting moment, I almost felt guilty. Almost. Frank arrived right on time. By 7, every lock was changed. He handed me the new keys, and I tucked them into my purse with a sense of finality. Then I walked through the house slowly, pulling down every streamer, every balloon, every ribbon. I stuffed them into black garbage bags until my arms ached. The perfect decorations, reduced to trash. When I was finished, I dragged the bags to the side of the house, where they'd be visible the next day, just waiting for someone to notice. Finally, I pulled out my phone and typed a message to my mom. Hey, not feeling well. I think I'm coming down with something. I'll have to skip the party tomorrow, don't want to get anyone sick. Her reply came an hour later. That's fine, feel better. No concern. No. Do you need anything? No. Hope you're okay. Just cold acceptance. Which only proved what I already knew. She was relieved I wouldn't be there. I set my phone aside and smiled to myself. Tomorrow, the real party would begin. Saturday morning, I woke up later than usual, made myself a big breakfast, and sat back with a cup of coffee like it was any other weekend. But inside, I was buzzing. Today was the day. Today, my family would realize the puppet had finally cut her strings. By early afternoon, my phone started buzzing. First, a text from Mom. We're here, but our keys don't work. Did you change something? I smiled and set the phone face down. A few minutes later, Dad called. Then Lily. Then Jason. I let them all ring out. Finally, I glanced at the flurry of texts. The locks don't fit. Hannah, what's going on? This is crazy. We have guests here. The caterer is outside. I leaned back, chewed another bite of pizza I'd ordered, and let them stew. After about half an hour, the calls became frantic. When Mom's name lit up again, I finally swiped to answer. Hannah! Thank God. We're all standing outside your house like idiots. None of our keys work. What happened? I sipped my coffee. Weird, I said lightly. Nothing's wrong with the locks. I just had them changed yesterday. Dead silence. I could practically hear the blood draining from her face. You changed the locks? She stammered. Why would you do that? Well, Mom, I said calmly, I figured it was time to protect my property, especially after hearing what you all really think of me. Her voice trembled. What do you mean? We would never. I cut her off. Don't lie. I heard it all. That night, a few weeks ago, you called me dumb. Dad bragged about tricking me into keeping the house. Lily laughed about scamming rent money. Aunt Nancy redecorated her living room with my so-called dental emergency money. Uncle Paul bought a boat with my car repair loan. Ring a bell? In the background, I heard muffled voices, panic, denial, maybe even Jason whispering, "What is she talking about?" "Hannah, honey," Mom said quickly, switching into her sugary tone. "You misunderstood. We were just joking around." "Joking?" I snapped. "You think it's funny to mock me as a walking ATM? To raise a toast to stupid relatives with money?" I heard every word. Every single word. Her voice cracked. "You're being ridiculous. Families help each other. That's all this is." "No, Mom," I said coldly. "Helping is when you ask and repay. Helping is when you appreciate the sacrifice. What you've been doing is stealing. You all knew I'd say yes, and you used me until it became entertainment." Then Lily grabbed the phone, her voice shrill and furious. "Hannah, you're ruining everything. We spent thousands on this party. Jason's parents are here, the food is here, everyone is waiting, and you're making us look like fools." "Funny," I said, almost laughing. "I thought you already decided I was the fool." "This is my special day," she wailed. "You can't just lock us out." "I already took down all your decorations," I told her, my voice steady. "They're in garbage bags by the side of the house. You can pick them up on your way out." "You're being a brat," she screeched. "If you don't let us in, we'll break down the door." I smiled into the phone. "No, you won't. Because I have cameras all over that property and a live alarm system. The second you touch my door, the police will be on their way. So go ahead. Lily, try it. See how your perfect engagement party looks with squad cars in the background." I could hear her crying before she shoved the phone back at Mom. "Hannah, please," Mom begged. "We can work this out. Just let us in. We'll talk like adults." "There's nothing left to talk about," I replied. "I told you I couldn't give you 5-0. You spent it anyway, hoping you could guilt me later. That's on you." "But we're your family," she cried. "Exactly," I said softly. "And that makes it worse. You don't just scam strangers. You scam your own daughter, your own sister, your own niece. That's not family, that's exploitation." Her voice broke. "We spent $5,000. You owe us." I laughed, sharp and humorless. "I owe you nothing. Take your food, your decorations, and your entitled guests, and get off my property. You are no longer welcome there." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You don't mean that." "Oh, I do," I said firmly. "I'm done being your puppet. I'm done being the stupid sister who pays for everything. I'm done with all of you." Before she could respond, I hung up. For the next hour, I watched through my security app as they scrambled around the driveway, making frantic phone calls, shoving trays of catered food back into vans, tearing down the leftover decorations. Jason's parents looked mortified. Jason looked lost, and Lily cried so hard her mascara streaked down her cheeks. It was the sweetest, most satisfying show I'd ever seen. The next morning I was barely out of bed when there was pounding on my apartment door. Heavy, angry pounding that rattled the frame. I looked through the peephole. My parents stood there, flanking Lily, all three of them looking like storm clouds. My stomach tightened, but instead of fear, I felt a surge of calm. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I opened the door just enough to lean on it. "What do you want?" Dad immediately shoved past me into the apartment, Mom and Lily following close behind. "We need to talk," he barked. "You ruined everything!" Lily screamed, her eyes bloodshot from crying. "My engagement party was destroyed, and it's all your fault." I folded my arms. "No, Lily. It's your fault for assuming I was stupid enough to fund it after hearing how you all laughed about me." Her face went red. "You owe us $5,000, she screeched. "We already paid for the food, the decorations, everything. You promised." "I promised nothing," I cut her off. "What I said was, you go ahead and book what you want, and I'll pay you back when I can. You spent money you didn't have, betting on me to bail you out. That gamble just failed. Mom stepped forward, her voice shrill. Hannah, this isn't fair. We're your family. You owe us for everything we've done for you. I laughed so hard I nearly doubled over. Done for me? What exactly have you done for me, Mom? Besides manipulate me into keeping a house I didn't even want? Besides calling me names behind my back and draining my savings account one fake sob story at a time? Her face paled, and I saw her realize I wasn't bluffing. You set us up, she whispered. You did this on purpose. I met her eyes coldly. Of course I did. You called me dumb, remember? Turns out, I'm not as stupid as you thought. I knew you'd ask for money again. I let you hang yourselves with your own greed. Dad slammed his fist on my kitchen counter. Until you apologize and pay us back, we're not speaking to you again. I smiled. Perfect. Saves me the trouble of cutting you out myself. You can't mean that, Mom said weakly. We're family. Dead serious, I replied. I'm done being your personal ATM. I'm done being the sister who's always too dumb to say no. From now on, I'm saying no. To all of you. Lily's voice cracked. But I'm your sister. You're also the same sister who bragged about scamming me for rent money in front of everyone. Remember that, Lily? Because I do. She bit her lip, tears streaming down her face, but I didn't flinch. I walked to the door, pulled it open, and pointed out into the hall. Get out. For a moment, no one moved. Then Dad muttered something under his breath, grabbed Lily by the arm, and stormed past me. Mom lingered just long enough to look at me with something like fear before following. When the door clicked shut behind them, I leaned against it, heart pounding, lungs heaving, and then I laughed. A laugh so free and light, it felt like years of chains had just fallen away. They wanted to silence me with guilt. Instead, I silenced them with the truth, and I wasn't done yet. It's been 6 months since that showdown in my apartment, and I can honestly say I've never felt lighter. I didn't sell the country house. Instead, I signed a contract with a real estate agency and turned it into a short-term vacation rental. The income covers most of my city mortgage, and then some. Now, instead of dreading my family's constant intrusions, I watch cheerful reviews from happy guests who actually respect the place and pay to stay there. As for Lily's wedding, I found out through Facebook that she and Jason tied the knot in a modest church ceremony last month. No invitations sent my way, of course. No surprise there. I didn't send a gift either. It felt strangely freeing, knowing I wasn't expected to bankroll their fairy tale anymore. My parents have tried to reach me a few times, an email here, a message through a mutual friend there, but I don't respond. The moment I hear their names, I shut the door. Some people call it harsh. I call it survival. Because the truth is, my family showed me exactly how they saw me. As a fool, a wallet, a puppet they could manipulate with guilt and sentiment. They toasted to my stupidity, laughing as they drained me. I can't forget that, and I won't forgive it. What I can do is move forward. I fill my weekends with trips to places I choose, dinners with friends who see me as more than a bank account, quiet evenings reading without waiting for the phone to ring with another fake emergency. Sometimes I think about that night, standing frozen in my own doorway, pastries trembling in my hands as I listened to them tear me apart. Back then, I thought my world had collapsed. But looking back now, I realize something else. It was the moment I woke up. I'm not dumb. I'm not their fool. I'm not the puppet they can pull strings on whenever they please. I'm Hannah, independent, strong, and finally free.